She lies sprawled out along the turf. With one arm extended, her frame barely clears the grass of centre court, pursuing a shot that seemed destined to secure the point for Iga Swiatek. Miraculously, against all logic, Alexandra Eala manages to return it. The audience erupts in a thunderous roar. Andrew Garfield rises to his feet. Tom Hiddleston follows suit. 2 men famous for portraying larger-than-life characters are suddenly captivated by a feat that seems to defy reality, taking place live on the pitch. That single instant goes viral within hours. Journalists dub the image the finest tennis capture of the year. Supporters refer to it as the horizontal forehand. Virtually every commentary shared online conveys the identical sentiment. Here is a competitor who refuses to concede any rally, even one where defeat seems certain. But a spectacular dive doesn't guarantee a tournament win. It merely extends the game. What Eala accomplished on that Saturday was a feat no Filipino athlete had ever achieved throughout the tenure of the world's most historic tournament. She was dismantling the reigning Wimbledon title holder, advancing to the 4th round of a major championship for the very first time. Furthermore, she succeeded against the very same rival who initially thrust her into the international spotlight 16 months prior on the hard courts of Miami. By the match's conclusion, Manny Pacquiao had already celebrated her on social media with a Philippine flag and celebratory emojis, a public endorsement that carries immense weight given his stature in the nation's sporting hierarchy. Maria Sharapova, whom a young Eala once admired and asked for a photograph with, officially tagged her as a star. Just 2 words, yet they said everything. The real inquiry isn't about what occurred, the results are clear. The question is how a teenager from a nation lacking a significant tennis heritage managed to command the attention of a boxing icon, a multiple-time Grand Slam victor, and prominent Hollywood stars, all within half a minute of footage. This wasn't merely good fortune. It certainly didn't happen overnight. Looking back, Eala departed the Philippines during her youth to refine her craft at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca. Leaving a country that historically lacked any real tennis infrastructure, there were no established legend to imitate or a pre-existing roadmap for what excellence ought to look like. It was solely her, a tennis frame, and a path that seemed highly illogical to external observers. For several years, that gamble appeared as if it might not yield results. As this year's Wimbledon began, her primary draw record stood at 1 victory and 5 defeats. That is not an error, nor is it a minor footnote. It represents the statistics of an athlete fighting to find her footing on the elite circuit, questioning if she truly belonged. Then, during the spring, everything shifted. Before this surge, a wall had been breached. Eala stepped onto the Miami courts as an unseeded underdog facing Swiatek, a titan of the circuit, and secured a victory. That was the instant casual observers took notice. It didn't prove lasting success yet. It merely demonstrated that she was capable of pulling off an upset. She built momentum gradually, match after grueling match. By the time Wimbledon arrived, she had already bested 6 different top 1-0 competitors throughout her professional journey, signaling that Miami was no fluke, but rather evidence of a genuine evolution in her game. Yet, nothing had unfolded on grass, nor at a major tournament, on the most prestigious court in tennis, pitted against the reigning champion, holding a world ranking of 32 and seeded 29th, she remained the statistical underdog entering the title holder's domain. Her subsequent actions did more than just sustain a streak. They elevated a burgeoning career into a phenomenon that captivated a nation and, eventually, a massive segment of Hollywood. However, to grasp the significance of that dramatic, sprawling save on the grass, you must comprehend the obstacles that nearly derailed her. Miami 2025. The true starting line. Eala emerged unranked against an athlete who had spent years at the pinnacle of the sport, and she triumphed. It wasn't just a scare, nor some fleeting anomaly forgotten by the next event. It was a definitive defeat of a former world number one. For most, such an outcome serves as a springboard. For Eala, it felt more like a warning flare launched into her own career path, confirming her talent was legitimate while ensuring everyone else realized it too. That is the part folks overlook regarding breakthrough victories. They don't just grant opportunities, they escalate the cost of competing. Prior to Miami, Eala could lose away from the spotlight. Afterward, every defeat generated headlines, and the losses continued. Not incessantly, and not in humiliating fashion, but frequently enough. Arriving at this year's Wimbledon, her Grand Slam main draw record stood at 1 win, against 5 defeats, 1 and 5, despite a victory that was supposed to revolutionize her trajectory. So, what did that tally actually signify? It indicated the tennis world was scrutinizing her, and she hadn't yet learned how to exist under that gaze. There is a specific, intense pressure that arises when you become the primary reference point for others. Eala wasn't simply carrying her personal aspirations onto the court. She was bearing the weight of a nation's first real chance for significance in a sport it had previously ignored. The Philippines has forged legends in boxing, pool, and 10-pin bowling, but tennis had offered the country almost no hope. Abruptly, she became their only prospect. Combine that with the reality that she departed home as a youth to train abroad at Spain's Rafael Nadal Academy, mastering a craft on unfamiliar soil, operating within a nation lacking established foundations, without a local tennis heritage to provide comfort during turbulent times. No supportive home audience to rely on during a typical Tuesday match abroad. Only she, her personal staff, and the creeping realization that her role transcended simple match victories. It is a peculiar sort of isolation. It isn't the pain of being overlooked. It is the solitude of being the sole pathfinder. Furthermore, self-doubt doesn't always manifest through defeat. Sometimes it occurs after winning matches you were expected to dominate, yet departing the court questioning if you truly earn your spot where high-stakes success starts. The shift wasn't a singular event. Observers love attributing everything to one specific instant, yet that is rarely the case. The reality was more incremental, gradual, and significantly harder for outside eyes to detect. Initially, there were minor breakthroughs, not the type that generate headlines, but those that helped the athlete regain faith in her own ability. Consistent performances at secondary levels, an occasional triumph, a solid week of play. Nothing viral, but enough to build a steady tempo. Then the major breakthrough occurred. Earlier this year in Dubai, Eala defeated Jasmine Paolini, finishing 6-1, 7-6, against an opponent who had already secured 2 Grand Slam final appearances. Such players aren't beaten by sheer luck. Then came the championship. Eala claimed victory at the Birmingham Open, entering the grass court circuit with something she had lacked for ages: a recent, tangible, and undeniable tournament win. Next, she faced elite competition again. As the grass season intensified, by the start of Wimbledon, Eala had already collected 6 victories over top 1-0 ranked opponents. Swiatek, looming in the 3rd round, would be the 7th. Every milestone seems minor in isolation: a win at a smaller tournament, a notable win against a familiar rival, a decent record on a court surface that was still fairly new to her. But combined, they weave a narrative far removed from her 1-in-5 Grand Slam history. Self-assurance isn't just a feeling. It's a verifiable track record. The evidence is clearly displayed. Prior to these Wimbledon matches, Eala held 7 victories against only 4 losses versus top 1-0 players, including an undefeated record on grass for the current season. She arrived as the 29th seed, holding the 32nd world ranking, both of which were personal milestones. She was already the first Filipino woman to be seeded in a major tournament, and the first athlete from the Philippines, of any gender, to reach the third round of this event. None of these stats guarantee success. Tennis matches aren't won on paper, but they illustrate something vital. When Eala stepped onto center court to face the reigning champion, she was vastly improved from the player who had struggled earlier. Championships. She had methodically crafted her path to success, victory by victory, away from the spotlight of televised arenas. So, when she faltered early during the opening set, conceding her serve to Swiatek, and it seemed as though the match was spiraling toward the familiar pattern of her previous failures, something fundamentally changed. She retaliated, instantly. The opening frame escalated into a grueling 9-0-minute conflict, escalating into a tiebreaker so intense it pushed well past standard scoring. Eala edged ahead, but Swiatek surged back. Eala soon faced multiple set points on the most prestigious stage of her career, pitted against the very player who had initially thrust her into the global tennis spotlight. She secured the set on her fourth opportunity, then performed a feat even more significant. Rather than succumbing to nerves during the second set, as had been her habit in prior Grand Slams, she surged to a 4-game lead and never lost her grip. Swiatek, a veteran with 22 tour titles, the defending champion of this event, ended the contest having committed 27 unforced errors during just that first set. Such a staggering figure doesn't happen by chance against an opponent who is merely gaining momentum. It occurs because the person on the other side of the net refuses to let you find your pace. Eala finished it 7-6, 6-2, and immediately collapsed to her knees. No aggressive fist pumps or loud roars. She simply wept right there on the grass, observed by a royal A-list celebrities and a vast audience watching from a nation across the globe. That isn't how someone reacts to an expected win. It's the visceral response of an athlete who had long doubted whether this dream would ever materialize, finally receiving the validation she sought. Standing on center court just after the match, Eala could barely formulate words. "I'm overwhelmed," she managed, her voice trembling. Perhaps to a seasoned winner like Iga or icons like Serena and Venus, this milestone feels trivial. But for a girl from the Philippines, she trailed off, leaving the sentiment unfinished. They didn't have to elaborate. The millions watching understood exactly what she meant. Later, in the media room, she found the words she missed earlier. She recounted practicing alongside her brother and grandfather after class, dressed in frilly socks and light-up sneakers on a concrete surface marked for basketball. Because that's all her homeland could provide for an aspiring player. She dedicated the trophy to every version of that girl still striving out there. "This triumph belongs to all those young dreamers in ruffled socks," she declared. Those words weren't crafted for a highlight clip. Instead, they reflect a woman who deeply understands the vast distance that used to separate her from this achievement. Back home, the response was thunderous. The Philippine Sports Commission hosted a massive public viewing session for crowds of supporters. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. extended his official commendations. Celebrities and Vaston Beld and Heverties and Partises, musical artists swarmed social media. Meanwhile, over in London, the Princess of Wales, an 8-time world boxing title holder, a 5-time Grand Slam winner, and a variety of notable Hollywood figures were all suddenly swept into the orbit of those same 48 hours. Reflecting on the aftermath, Eala put it quite simply. The last athlete from her nation to command such collective focus was Pacquiao, the icon whose matches would clear out the streets of Manila on a Sunday. Now, on a regular weeknight, citizens are congregating with that same intensity, only this time for a tennis contest. It's a reality worth contemplating. The Philippines has never witnessed a tennis milestone of this magnitude. Furthermore, Eala didn't just stumble into this. She forged it through repeated setbacks, eventually moving past the narrative of defeat. She still has obstacles ahead. Her upcoming rival is Jasmine Paolini, who has excelled here and at the French Open, demonstrating her capacity to thrive in the sport's most prestigious venues. Eala previously secured a victory against her back in February with a straight sets win. Yet, February isn't Wimbledon, and an early season event lacks the gravity of a Grand Slam, with royalty watching from the stands. Whatever unfolds in the next match, a permanent shift has occurred. A competitor who entered the tournament with only one prior Grand Slam victory departs the third round, hitting a new career best, standing, having bested a defending champion and carving out a unique legacy. She is the first Filipina to be seeded in a major tournament and the first from her country to advance to the fourth round here. These metrics were non-existent for her nation just a day earlier. Yet, the broader narrative transcends mere rankings. It concerns what happens when a country devoid of tennis heritage, institutional support, or a clear roadmap brings forth someone who forces the globe to take notice. It's about a legendary boxer posting a flag and flexing emojis on a stranger's feed because he identifies a familiar drive in her that mirrors his own journey 2 decades prior. It's about a 5-time major victor, someone Eala once idolized, openly labeling her a true star with genuine conviction. And it's about that specific image that everyone kept circulating, a young athlete sprawled across the grass, lunging for a ball that seemed impossible to reach, fighting for one final moment to keep the rally alive. She connected with the ball, though she didn't win the point. Swiatek ultimately claimed the game, but 4 games. Eventually, Eala wore her down. A pair of sets passed, and there she was, weeping on the floor as big screen stars applauded from the VIP balcony. With royalty looking on from nearby, the iconic image captured went far beyond a single score. It transcended just one play. It represented a long journey defined by near misses, where she gradually mastered the art of winning, one grueling contest at a time. The subsequent match looms, followed by others, provided she continues to prove her worth. It is impossible to predict the ceiling of her current streak. Yet, one truth remains. That youngster once known for her frilly socks has stopped pursuing greatness. Instead, she has compelled the spotlight to pursue her.